We will draw a simple and familiar picture. You are sitting by the bedside of your husband. He is sound asleep. He has not the slightest awareness of bodily existence. You do not expect him to exchange thoughts with you, or to accompany you to town, or to inform you of anything. Your companionship with him has as surely ceased as though he was in his casket, so far as his body is concerned. It would never occur to you to employ a medium to see if she could communicate with your temporarily dead to the world husband's body, as many do whose loved ones' bodies are in a similar but permanent condition. Those who do this do so because they feel that their companionship with their loved ones has ended. As you sit there, however, are you not aware of a companionship of the eternal Thomas who cannot die? Everything of a mind nature which has come from him to you, you still have. They are a part of your identity. The memories of them which have helped you to become you are still companion to you. You see and hear his thoughts in his works around you, the house he built with you, the children he born with you. What is the difference between that sleeping body and a dead one? The only difference is that the dead body of Thomas cannot awaken, but Thomas the immortal is still living and becoming a part of you and of all men every moment of all future ages. If you do not grasp this, ask yourself if your own life is not being enriched by Beethoven, Wagner, Shakespeare, Walt Whitman, and the Emerson you so deeply love the companionship of. Would you be the same woman without them? If so, are they not a part of your identity? Again, if so, can you say they are dead when you can have their companionship whenever you wish? Who can you say is dead? Whose body once walked the earth to be an actor in the play of love, which the master playwright is throwing upon the screen of imagining to simulate his one ideal, and to help lay a stone in the structure of civilization as one coral marine animal leaves its calcareous skeleton with other calcareous skeletons to build an island in the sea. Can you say that Latos or Shakespeare, Socrates, Homer, Newton, and Luther are dead when they are continuing to make scholars and cultural citizens each moment of each day? Can you rightly say that Jesus died on the cross and will come again when he is already here, transforming your life and ours, and countless others by his teachings, which you can hear and read as effectively as though he spoke them to you from the voice of his body? Who are you, therefore? Are you not all that has ever been? And will there ever come a moment in all future ages in which you are not eternally living among eternally living mankind to make it a part of you? If you thus reason, can you not see the great confusion which exists in man's mind, or senses rather, because of mistaking immortality for mortality? Can you not see and comprehend that material bodies and material values go hand in hand with early man, but as his spiritual nature unfolds from body sensing to mind knowing of God awareness in him, man gradually exchanges material values for intellectual ones? Can you not plainly see that man is not in an intellectually advanced age as yet, despite the seeming wonders of his material progress, but on the contrary, he is still in the barbarian age of man-killing? He has not yet discovered his unity with man and God, for when man really knows his unity with all men, he cannot possibly kill. Our present civilization has been built on piracy. That which one nation has taken from another nation's for their enrichment has impoverished them instead. No man will kill another when he knows that he is killing himself. Is it not clear to you that man has not even known the meaning of love as yet? For love means the action-reaction of equal giving and re-giving. These work simultaneously under the law, but when man takes instead of giving, the simultaneity of taking in action-reaction acts in reversal of the law of love. Can you not also plainly see that the mind universe is still but words to our civilization as a whole, when only a small percentage is on the edge of its meaning? Let me read that again. Can you not also plainly see that the mind universe is still but words to our civilization as a whole, when only a small percentage is on the edge of its meaning? The world, intelligentsia, very commonly refers to the electric awareness of the senses as the conscious man, and to the God mind as the subconscious mind. Many of our great intellectuals still believe the brain to be the mind, instead of being but a receiver, recorder, and transmitter of states of motion. These also believe that each individual has his own individual mind, which dies when he dies. Many of these actually believe that mind evolved from matter. How wonderful it is, therefore, to see that science is at long last beginning to not only discover the existence of a zero universe, but has become aware of its mathematical necessity. The recent discoveries of the antiproton and other antimatter particles is the first glimpse that science has ever had within God's zero universe. For many years, the necessity for a zero in a quantitative universe has been considered as necessary as a fulcrum of non-motion has been necessary for the expression of motion. The apex of the universal cone is as far as one can go in that direction, but whatever of infinite extension there is in this universe is in the direction of its base. The antimatter discovery of the last 2 years will become a great branch of science as soon as the offices and purposes of the inert gases are really known, for they are the key which unlocks the long closed doors to God's zero universe of mind light. It is not proper, however, to use the term antiproton in reference to the soul seed of any condition of motion. It would be just as inappropriate as the use of the term anti-man in referring to his soul seed. What science is really discovering is the reality of the non-dimensional cathode from which the electric divisions are extended into dimensioned and conditioned anodes. It is, at long last, realizing that the action universe of motion must have a fulcrum which does not move. This will lead to the placing of energy in the fulcrum source of his universal mirage of motion, instead of in the mirage extension where science now places it. When that day comes, science will first question the universal vacuum for cause, rather than search within effect for cause. When this transformation takes place in man's thinking, science will have leaped ahead 1,000 years in that day. We again say these words were not written in a textbook for the unfolding of new worlds of knowledge which lie ahead, unless such knowledge is distinctively relative to the one purpose for which it is written. We feel, however, that a few paragraphs of explanation might help open the doors to new light for the researchers who are now finding a somethingness in that supposedly nothingness from which matter emerges only to be swallowed up by it. What researchers are now discovering is that there are two ends of the creating units of matter. One end is the zero fulcrum end, which projects dimensionless mind-imagined patterns in pairs of bodies, and the other end is the enlarged pattern in motion. Their relation to each other is in the shape of a cone. The antimatter end is the apex, and the projected promatter end is the base of the cone. To restate it in electrical terms, the apex end is the cathode and the base end is the anode point. As the anode pair always move as separate units of a pair until they become united as one, so likewise do their apeces, projected fulcrums, seem to move to control their balance in space. Naturally, the zero universe is motionless and no movement takes place at the zero fulcrum, for movement does not begin until division of electric thinking projects a two-way wave lever from the fulcrum to manifest its energy and its ideal. It is the wave lever which moves, however, and not the fulcrum. And when balance moves in two directions, it is always centered by one, no matter how it moves. See figures 17 to 29. This is too long a story to amplify here, but it is sufficiently relevant to our purpose to print 7 diagrams here which will begin the clarification of the method Creator uses in thus projecting his imagining into the forms of his imagining upon the three-dimensional screen of space, which seems so real to us. The day will come in man's unfolding intelligence and intersensory perception when he can clearly see that there is no real material universe, nor is there dimension. There is an illusion, however, which stands for the reality of the substance it simulates, and that simulation is interpreted by our senses as motion. When man can comprehend that, he will then know that what he thinks of as motion is, in itself, but simulation, for motion likewise is but illusion. The 7 diagrams will also help give more meaning to the new ideal of antimatter, which has just entered the scientific world, as well as to open the door to the coming of the new science of space geometry. In figure 62, you will note a centering point marked 0. That is the beginning point of the mind universe, which marks the eternal identity of one unit of a multiple repeated ideal. Your identity begins and ends there. Likewise, the identity of every creating thing in the universe begins and ends there. And now, the 8 corner projections of the universal radar broadcasting stations. And this is it. This is a broadcasting station. I wonder if I can make that out of wire or paper so that I might become more familiar. Interjection of me right here. I find that playing with forms, playing with them, making it out of paper or wire or clay or something like that, helps. Because you can learn through play. And I think it's probably the best way to learn because you're having fun while you're doing it. God's end of the cosmic bridge where motion begins, its projection into space to simulate mind ideal. Radar corner reflector. Matter begins by division of stillness in the inert gases, and its projection by two-way motion into pairs of octave wave tones, which we call elements. The principle of projection is the same that man uses in projecting the concept of his ideal into the moving form of the ideal. It is the dual radar principle of nature, reduced to its ultimate simplicity. Nature is a series of echoes. The 8 radar corner receivers of thought messages projected from inert SAPS, from inert SAPS, man's end of the cosmic bridge where motion reaches maximum. And there's that shape right there that looks like the Vesica Pisces, which is a shape I'm very fond of. The curved projector shown in figure 62 is repeated in the cube receiver shown herein. Motion, which has been divided into pairs and thrown out into space by the projector, is multiplied in the vortices of the receiver, which corresponds to the corner reflectors of radar. Forms and sounds which are born in space are thus echoed back to space. And there is another picture, figure 64. Every form of matter which is projected into space has its antimatter image within space, which ultimately voids it and reborns it. Antimatter concepts have their own balancing relation to their material images in space geometry. Are of a corpuscle in your blood. You and it and all things else are the formed images which simulate the Creator's imagining. You and the oak and all things else are thinking God's imagining. That 0 point is you. In it is all knowledge and all power to extend to you as you desire it and are aware of it within that kingdom of heaven within you. You must someday learn. Here's another diagram. The pendulum, which swings one way, has its invisible counterpart, which swings the other way. This drawing illustrates a sun at the crest of its wave, which will eventually be voided by its counterpart awaiting at its trough, and reborn again from the same point. It emerges from that point millions of times and returns to it millions of times complexed by union with other identities, which become a part of its purpose. That 0 point is the soul seed of the oak or of a corpuscle in your blood. You and it and all things else are the formed images which simulate the Creator's imagining. You and the oak and all things else are thinking God's imagining. That 0 point is you. In it is all knowledge and all power to extend to you as you desire it, and are aware of it within that kingdom of heaven within you. You must someday learn that. You must in time learn that the eternal you is on the other end of your projected body. If at present you are limited to body awareness, it is only because you do not know of your divine centering source. Many people in the world have hardly any awareness of the God which centers them. Science is at last beginning to realize that there is an antiproton and an antimeson, and is searching for anti-other things. That is the most wonderful thing that has happened to the intellectual world in thousands of years. It has not yet become aware, however, that the antimatter universe is God's universe. Figure 62 is the seed. When it is ready to extend or to be reborn as an oak or man or a carbon atom, it divides and becomes the fulcrum of itself. The mind projection mirrors then provide a cube wave field for projecting ideal into measured form of ideal. By studying figures 62, 63, and 64, you will also see why nature can never pass beyond the sphere in form. That is the end of its journey. The reversal of polarization begins there. The charge then becomes discharge. Spheres then oblate by throwing off rings. In ordinary language, life is maximum there and death must take over. Life and death are born in the same cradle, but they meet at that point as equals. That is the basis of the radar principle, the end of the journey of sound, as of all things else, is in one of the 8 corners of the cube wave field. Sound must return from that focal point. It is reflected from there. Electrical and radar engineers recognize that fact. They have even coined the name of corner reflector for it. In figure 62, you will see 8 sections of a cube wave field, which constitute the 4 pairs in every octave. Each of these pairs is a radar corner reflector in reverse. The reverse is a corner projector. The corner reflector of radar is a mirrored image of the corner projector. The 4 pairs constitute a cube wave field. The cube projector never appears with this seed until it germinates, which means that the conditions for its rebirth are normal for that rebirth. If it never again germinates on this earth, it still is, and maintains its one-plane existence eternally. It cannot be destroyed, for it is mind ideal of mind thinking, and that is what constitutes all nature. Figure 66, exemplifying the perpetual interrelationship of matter and antimatter as shown in figure 65, which gives and regives to each other for perpetual sequences of rebirths into each other. The outstanding characteristic feature of nature is repetition. Life and death are other names for it. Reincarnation is still another name for it. Figure 63 is the body end of the cosmic bridge. It is that which is projected. It is motion compressed into a spherical image of the transient form that is eternally recorded in the whole, which is within the It is the motion compressed into a spherical image of the transient form that is eternally recorded in the whole, which is within the 4 rings of the seed. That sphere is also composed of 8 parts and is centered by the 0 of its source. To more fully comprehend this omnipresent radar universe of reflecting light mirrors and lenses, take one of the 8 reflectors out of a cube, or make one composed of 3 mirrors, placed the way they are shown in the corner of figure 62. If you analyze this shape, you will see that it is a half a cube cut through its diagonals. If you now slowly insert an object on the end of a long needle toward the apex of that pyramid, you will see it reflected 3 times, and those reflections will grow even closer as your object nears that apex. That illustrates the multiplication or compressive power of nature. It also symbolizes centrifugal force and higher potential. It also represents 3 of the octave elements on the red or blue side of the whole octave, of which the 3 mates are in the reverse corner reflector. Now here's another chart. The 4th of the octave pairs is the spirit self. These 4 pairs and their inert gas recorder constitute the whole octave wave field principle. It shows how matter is constructed. The balancing dark image in figure 64 and 65 show how the 0 universe balances every movement in the universe by centering every unit of matter with its accumulated potentials at a 0 point within it, which we call gravity, and with another equal 0 point at balanced focal points between each pair. Illustrating principle of projection of mind desire energy into pairs of tones to create the 9 octaves of tones, which constitute nature. The spiral nebula, seen edgewise, which occupies the amplitude position in the wave current, corresponds with the loop of force which centers every polarized unit of an electric current. In figure 62, you see God's end of the bridge between the Creator and His creation. In figure 63, you see man's end of it. In figure 64, you see how both ends are united by the electric wave, and in figure 67 by the electric current. Figure 67, a nebula, has been placed in the position in which a loop of force would occur in the electric current and where a carbon atom would be found in the elements of matter. These drawings should clearly demonstrate how the intelligence of the invisible zero universe absolutely controls the visible universe of motion, as dynamically as the operator of the cinema controls his visible ideal in motion. This control of the visible universe by the invisible will become dynamically applicable in man's laboratories and his creative efforts in discovery and invention in the ratio in which he comprehends the geometry of space. That in itself is an exhaustive study, a practically new science which could never be fitted into the old concept of matter, but can readily be fitted into a universe based upon 9 octaves of mathematically rhythmic cube-based tones. That's a good picture. I like that. That's a good chart. Figure 68 indicates a basis for the universal build-up from 2-dimensional plane to 3-dimensional cube and back again to disappearance through 2-dimensional plane. I think I will start the next because I'm at 26 minutes. I will start here for the next one. I'm going to finish this book really soon, I hope. I'm getting pretty close to the end. Anyway, this is the Dove Lady. Over and out for now.